It's funny. Yesterday, I met Steve Jurvetson, one of the guys who started Draper Fisher Jurvetson, funded Hotmail on the bike trail. You know,
Right.
It's like, hey, why don't you give me a call and let's meet up and talk startups? It's like, okay.
Right.
You know, but here we have no way to talk to our phone and say, hey, can you talk to Steve Jurvetson's phone? And
Right.
you know, I mean, you can sort of bump the phones and then get his contact information, you know, or you can, you know, text him or email him, but you can't really match up the system, you know, and sort of say, override everything. Can you renegotiate my whole day? Because I just got
Right.
got a meeting with Steve Jurvetson, man.
Right.
You know? Screw Mike Erickson. I don't want to go on some panel. Let's go to Jervy's house. You know?
Sure.
You know, and you can't do that. Then you got to go back home and open up your browser and start going, oh, man, how can I screw this person?
Sure.
You know, how can I get out of this thing? You know, and renegotiate my day. You know, and I have accidental meetings all the time. I remember when I flew back from Microsoft, from being interviewed at Microsoft, I met Larry Tesler, and we were both in the back row in a Alaska Airlines flight, and you couldn't have planned it.
Right.
You wouldn't have known. But here I had one of the top engineering minds in the world sitting next to me in the back row. You know, you think he's up in first class now.
Sure.
I mean, he was vice president of engineering at Amazon at the time, and he helped hire Steve Jobs at Apple. I mean, it's just really cool guy, right?
Yeah.
And there's my phone. Yeah, it's just stuff like that happens all the time in my life, and I look for it. So most people aren't. Most people, if they sat next to Larry Tesler, they would have no idea. They wouldn't have that impulse to talk with him, ask him, what do you do? You know, and I knew he was a geek because of you know, the kind of computer he was using and stuff like that. And it's like, you're strange. What's up?
Right.
What's up, man? I mean, I was sitting next to two guys just last week. One guy had a Windows XP machine and was using Excel, and one guy had an iPad, and I was like, what's up? You're doing something weird. What's going on? What kind of apps do you? You know, I pull out my iPad. What kind of apps do you have? You know, and I find out he's a vice president of the computer game company. Right? These guys stand out, and why do they stand out? Because they're innovators. They push things. They don't do what they did 10 years ago. You know, they want a different idea. They want to try something new, and that's the kind of person I want to sit next to, not the guy who's on Excel. You know,
Right.
I mean, the Excel guy could be interesting if he's, you know, doing something else. And
but he's not breaking any barriers.
Not this guy.
Right.
I mean, he had an old crappy Dell with Windows XP on it and Excel, and it's like, no, this guy doesn't care about his computing life.
Right.
You know? I mean, it'd be one thing if he had the latest, greatest Dell machine and Windows 7 on it. Then at least we could say, hey, how's things going with Windows 7? You know, find any cool apps or But no, this guy was. I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't need to change. You know? Okay, you know, you're not the kind of guy I'd like to talk to.
And that's why, I know we have to wrap up, but that's why I was asking you about the likelihood to adopt something that's entirely different, right? And that's the innovative component to say, look, I'm not going to use the old Dell with Windows ME and...
Well, that's why you have to, if you're going to do that, you have to skate where the puck will be, and you have to say, and that's sort of why I bring up Siri in this conversation so much, because we know Apple bought Siri. We know from talking to them, because I just interviewed the VCs, that they're put in charge of the next iPhone or the iPhone strategy. Maybe not the next one, but the one after that. So you're talking, you know that Apple's going to bring out a new iPhone every year. So we're talking next summer or the summer after that, right?
Right.
That they're going to integrate this in some way. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how complete it's going to be. I don't know how cool it is. But Steve Jobs doesn't put stuff on stage that's not cool.
Right.
And so, so skate where the puck's going to be. Okay, people are going to have voice with a web service hookup, and it's going to negotiate with things and put things places. So you have a calendar, other people have other kinds of data types. So I can say, hey, I just found out I can go to Steve Jurvetson's house tonight for dinner. Can you make that happen? And the device will make that happen. And no, you can't do that. Your wife has you. With a family dinner.
Call a divorce lawyer.
Yeah, call a divorce lawyer. No, it's like, okay. can you renegotiate with Steve Jurvetson for some time that works for both of us?
Right.
You know, and it could go off to Steve Jurvetson's calendar and go, hey, he's open next week and he's in town, because you guys know where we're actually going to be, right?
And
with Steve, he's only here in Half Moon Bay 2 days out of 20. You know, so you got to find out when he's going to be here, or you got to go and meet him where he is. You know. Last week he was shooting rockets in the desert. You know, that would have been cool too. You know, it's like, can I come and shoot rockets with you? That sounds fun. But that's a different kind of commitment to my calendar than going and meeting him for dinner.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is skate where the puck's gonna be. And you know, the iPad, for instance, right now there's a window of opportunity this summer to ship new ideas on the iPad, because the people who accept new ideas, like that guy sitting next to me, are on iPads. And that's why Flipboard went crazy, right? Because everybody has this iPad thing in front of them, and not really sure why I spent $500 on this. It's sort of cool, and there's some good games, and I can watch Netflix movies on it, but there's something coming.
Well, that's skating where the puck's going to be, right? I mean, Flipboard.
These guys saw, the iPad's coming out. Let's hire one of the best designers from Apple, you know, and let's build a new kind of news experience for the iPad. And it comes out 3 months after the iPad ships, and everybody's hungry for a new idea. And boom, you know, it hits. Right. And so, you know, next year, if this new iPhone with this Siri thing comes out, and everybody's like, oh, that's cool. What else can we do with it? You know, there's only, let's say there's 1,000 apps that use it. Well, and I doubt there will be 1,000 ones that are really optimized the first day. But if you come out and say, hey, if you're on Siri, you can actually hook up your calendar to this thing and talk to your calendar, and your calendar will negotiate for you, you know, and stuff like that. Then you'll get some PR because you were out when everybody was trying to discover a new idea or a new thing.
Right.
You know? And same thing with Google. Google's going to do the same thing, right? So if you make a deal with Vic and Dutra and say, hey, man, Google Calendar is cool, but, you know, we got this other thing. And it could make your life a lot better. You know? Can you show it off on stage? Maybe, you know. You know, and then everybody's downloading, you know, or trying out Tungle on their Android phone, you know. Same thing.
We're going there now. We got to, unfortunately.
Okay.
Android app is coming. You've settled in just on a more personal level with iPhone. That's the decision.
I have a Samsung too. I'm still playing with it, but I'm an iPhone guy. I mean, you can start religious wars. To me, it doesn't. If you have a Samsung now, it's good. It's a good enough phone.
Right.
Call quality, call dropping, all the kind of shit we've heard. Does it happen? You see a lot of it?
I don't care. I just don't care.
Right.
Only 5% of my time is
on
the
phone.
Right.
I'm doing this all day long. You know, so I care about this, not about this. And so people are like, I care about this. I'm like, you're old school. I get a second phone or buy an Android phone. I don't care, you know. The world is moving to where we're doing more and more of this, and it's actually pretty good. So, and I just did a film on the Dead Zone on 92. Freaking Samsung was just as bad. You know, you hold your hand over it, goes from 3 bars to 1.
Right.
You know, so it doesn't have the kind of. I mean, I can get the thing to go to 0 here. If I hold it right, then let my finger, so it's it actually bridges the antennas. But I don't know.
It's coming out in Canada today, unlocked.
Did you see all the lines? You know, it's sold out.
It's sold out.
It's sold out in New Zealand in 4 hours. Sold out in Australia. But it doesn't matter. The market share doesn't matter. It's actually Apple and Google versus everybody else, and they're just gonna keep stealing market share from everybody. And one thing I'm hearing from a lot of startups though is people on iPhones buy apps and buy things, and Android users they don't.
Very interesting.
At a lower level, you know, and
I didn't know that.
No.
Yeah, OpenTable says their usage is way off the charts for iPhone for some reason. And it's like, okay, well, that sort of makes sense because you're in the higher end restaurants, and so it's self-selection. But I hear that from eBay, from other developers, and it's like the App Store, I think, in Google is sort of broken. There's something about it that doesn't afford buying an app.
Right.
So free apps, they're getting lots of downloads, but people aren't buying apps. like they do for
Is it a different market segment, or is it technology?
I think it's affordances. And how do I explain that? You know, I've had Nokia phones for 4 years that have had front-facing cameras and it had video chat. Nobody's ever called me in the middle of the night and said, "Can I try FaceTime with you?"
Right.
Or try know, using a video. They do want us. And there's something about the affordance of seeing it, and also the marketing. They're showing you, you can do this video thing with this device. Nokia never really showed it to you.
Right.
They really made it sexy.
Yeah.
You know, and so they didn't impel you to do it with the marketing. But it's also the affordance. I can click here and get it, and it works. And I don't need to have the guy on the other end load something like I did on Nokia, right? If I wanted to play with it, I'd have to load some video conferencing software, and I'd have to make sure he had it.
It's baked right into the OS.
And here in the United States, nobody has Nokia phones. Very nice, you know. It would always be the Europeans, but it just never worked, and it never had that affordance where you could just click on something and make it happen. And this thing does. And I think that's what Steve Jobs'
been very good at that, right?
Yeah. Building that affordance in. And it's like, if I'm going to add a new feature to it, it's going to be usable, and everybody's going to want to click on it and try it. And it's going to do something that's why Siri, I think, was so attractive to him. It's like,
although the market perceived that as a search play, right? Initially, it was a search product, wasn't it?
It's not really search. It's different because it doesn't search web pages. It searches APIs. It negotiates with APIs. Is really the more accurate answer. The problem is, when I saw them, I mean, they were here in this house. They pitched me, and it's like, you're going to get bought by Microsoft.
Siri guys. Okay.
Yeah, I said you're going to get bought within months because it's too strategic for you to be on the street. Your idea is going to make some big company a lot of money, and you're going to get bought. And that was right, but I never used it that much because it just is not that satisfying because there's not enough APIs.
It sat on my dashboard for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually starting to use it again because I'm trying to think about where
it could go.
Where is Apple? And did you see the patent? Apple's patenting apps. That's all about Siri. Nothing. Look at the screens they're putting in. They're putting in like negotiation kinds of screens.
Yeah.
Like, hey, would you like a pizza right now? You know,
right.
Kind of negotiate. That's Siri. And they didn't put it in the UI of Siri. But I'm reading into that and going, okay, they're patenting concepts that are going to come out in a future Siri. So that they can protect it against Google, or against Nokia, and have some playing cards on the table when Nokia sues them again, because Nokia's out of the game.
Sure,
it's just out of the game. They're out. If they don't figure this out within the next 6 months, they're out of the game. Because Google has voice and Apple has voice, and Nokia, they have an ugly UI and their voice doesn't work.
Right.
And RIM,
Yeah,
if every RIM user sees a Google or an Apple phone and you're talking to it, and it's doing shit,
it's a different experience.
I want that phone, man. My phone sucks.
Yeah,
people already do it now. I mean, imagine when you got voice to it.
Yeah, well, and when you have enough API, right now it only has 40 APIs.
Right.
Exactly.
Imagine a world where it has 100,000 APIs
and you can just
that
interact.
you can talk with, and you can talk to every app, and you can ask it. Like,
anything.
What was the difference between my ride time yesterday and the ride time Tuesday?
Yeah.
And did I see any difference? Or what's the difference in my heart rate? Or what's the difference? And it comes back with an answer because that data's there. You know, or look at Wolfram Alpha. What if it hooks into Wolfram Alpha and you can say, and tell it, what's the average rainfall in Moon Bay on July 15th? And it goes and finds it for you and brings back a graph of every July 15th forever. I mean, I've done that kind of search, right? It's there. You if you're buying a house, you should be on Wolfram Alpha going,
for sure.
What's the average wealth of each neighborhood? Where can I afford to live? Go to Zillow. What's the average housing price? I can afford a $900,000 house. Where can I buy a house right now? And it should bring heat maps of the city and say these are the 4 areas you should focus your searching on.
That's true.
Then you go to Realtor.com and circle them, and it shows you all the houses for sale in that neighborhood. It's like,
yeah, indeed.
Anyways,
Thank you so
hopefully
much.
this helped.
Oh yeah, great.